Have you ever noticed how quickly you'll side with your own team or your own city, your own group? I mean, it just feels natural, right? Almost instant. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the powerful mental shortcut that's behind that exact feeling. It's called in-group bias. All right, to really get this, we've got to start with the most basic division our brain makes. It's a split that happens automatically, probably dozens of times a day, without you even noticing.
I mean, just think about any situation where there's a clear divide. Could be a sports game, a political debate, heck, even just a friendly rivalry at work. It always starts like this, just two separate groups. And then, boom, a line gets drawn. Now, this line can be real or it can be totally imaginary. But once our brain sees it, that little line becomes incredibly important.
And here's where it gets really interesting. We immediately instinctively place ourselves on one side of that line. So all of a sudden, it's not just two random groups anymore. No, it's us and it's them.
That simple, automatic gut feeling you have to favor your side, that's it. You're looking right at in-group bias in its purest form. It's one of the most fundamental ways our minds try to make sense of the world.
Okay, so let's actually define this thing and then look at just how deep it runs, how it affects our judgment in daily life, and usually we don't even have a clue it's happening. The key word there is tendency, because this isn't a conscious choice we're making. It's more like a default setting. Our brains are just wired from the factory to give people in our in-group a bit of a boost and to be a little more skeptical of anyone we see as part of an out-group. Let's see how this plays out in the real world. Think about meeting someone totally new. What is it that makes you trust them? Well, if they share our background, maybe they went to the same school, grew up in the same town, love the same music, we often grant them instant trust. It's just a gut feeling. But for someone from an out group, we kind of make them earn it. We need evidence. We demand proof for the same trust we give our own group for free. All right, here's another one. This bias totally shapes how we see people's mistakes, especially at work. So imagine a coworker messes something up. Now ask yourself, does it matter what team they're on? And this is just a perfect example, right? For our own team member, we immediately look for context. They're just having a bad day. We give them the benefit of the doubt. But for the person on the other team who made the exact same mistake, we often jump straight to a character judgment. They're so careless. The action is identical, but which group they belong to completely changes the story we tell ourselves. And it's not just about judging people's actions, This bias also messes with how we judge their ideas. Think about it. An idea comes from someone inside our circle. We're open to it. We'll listen. It probably sounds pretty reasonable. But that exact same idea coming from an outsider, suddenly our skepticism alarms start ringing. It sounds questionable. The source changes everything, even when the content is exactly the same. So why? Why are our brains even wired like this? Well, it turns out this bias has deep evolutionary roots. It used to be a feature, not a bug. See, for our ancient ancestors, sticking with your tribe wasn't a nice to have. It was literally a matter of life and death. Your group gave you safety, an identity, a sense of belonging. Favoring your own, that's what increased your chances of survival. And that ancient instinct is still humming away in our brains today. But here's the problem. In our big, complex, modern world, that old survival instinct is constantly misfiring. It completely distorts our sense of fairness, it makes us lean on lazy and harmful stereotypes, and it gets in the way of working with people who are different. Honestly, it's a huge source of conflict. And that's the real trick, isn't it? Knowing where that line is. I mean, loyalty and belonging, those are good things. But the second that loyalty makes us switch off our critical thinking and abandon fairness, that's when it's crossed over into a dangerous cognitive bias. Okay, but here's the good news. We are not just stuck with this default setting. We can actually learn to consciously override this automatic programming. So let's look at 4 really practical steps to start thinking more fairly. All right, let's break these down. First up, judge the action, not the label. Focus on what someone actually does, not what group they belong to. Second, look for individual evidence. Remember, groups are just an idea. People are real. Treat them like individuals. Third, expose yourself to different points of view. Getting familiar with other perspectives is a powerful antidote to bias. And finally, number 4, question that feeling of instant trust. Just pause and ask yourself, is this trust based on real evidence or just a shared label? When you really boil it all down, overcoming this bias comes down to one core principle. It's one mental shift that can pretty much change everything. Look, dividing the world into us and them feels easy, it feels efficient, but it gives us a blurry, distorted picture of reality. Real clarity, true fairness, that only happens when we make the effort to see past the group label and judge people based on their own merits, their own actions, and their own character.
And that automatic, gut level preference for us over them, that's the thinking error.